बैठो प्लीज सिट. Okay. Yes. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, 16th May 2022. So as it is Monday, let's have some Monday motivation. Look at the Monday motivation story. Keep that shark inside you alive. Okay, so the story is related to the fishing community or the Japanese lifestyle. Okay, so what Japanese believe is they are very much interested in, let's say, eating fish. Okay, it is their staple diet. Okay, so they completely depend on fishing activity for their daily livelihood also, as well as we can say eating purpose also, food purpose. Okay, so this fishing community go into the sea and catch the fish on daily basis. As population grew and a demand for more and more fish also grew. Okay, so the fish near the coastal area depleted, and therefore they needed to go deep inside the, what you can say, sea. Okay, so they started going inside the sea, but it took more longer time. It took more longer time, and for that let's say time, what used to happen is the fish was let's say making some foul smell. Okay, because the fish requires some kind of freezing activity so as to maintain that taste. Okay, otherwise there will be we can say foul smell and it will not be edible. We all know about this. It needs to be stored in the freezing temperatures, right? So they started using the, we can say, the refrigerators, and they started storing this fish in those refrigerators. Then what used to happen is basically they are very much also sensitive about taste of fish. Okay, the Japanese people, and they immediately understood, no, the kind of, let's say, fresh fish is very much different in taste than the, we can say, older fish here. Okay, one which is stored. So the fishing community, or those who were catching this fish, they found one unique technique here. What they did not kill the fish, rather they started storing the fish in the water tanks on the boats. Okay, they started storing that fish, but again storing that much large amount of fish in the fishing tank was also the problem. So what they did is they created unique technique. They started hitting the fish for some time, and after that the fish itself used to lay idle, but it did not die. Okay, unconscious or kind of, let's say, injured, or we can say that it was inactive, but it did not die. So kind of fresh taste was there. Okay, but again the Japanese people understood that again the taste was different. Okay, so the fishing community was concerned that this, let's say, idle lying fish is problematic. How to make or keep them alive? So what they did, they kept one small shark fish inside that tank.
Okay.
Now what happened there is, as shark is let's say considered as threat by the fish.
It's a predator.
It's predator. So they will always try to save themselves from that shark. Although shark will eat certain number of fish, but that is fine for fishermen.
Right, sir.
But now these fish are fresh fish. They tested same. Okay. So what do we understand from this study?
So never give up.
No, see, that is fine. That never give up, that is fine.
What kind of fear is necessary to get success in life?
Instead of fear, we will say that challenge. When there is challenge in life, we tend to move forward. See, there is continuous challenge in front of fishermen. Yes, every Monday we are having this motivation story. Now, let us see which are the important articles. Yes, look at the first page. On the bottom side, Madhya Pradesh study finds Yes, hepatitis in COVID affected children. The new study by a group of doctors, Bundelkhand Medical College, Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. Okay, so they have found that those children infected with COVID-19, after some months of recovering, they are having this hepatitis developed in them. Okay, so this is very important aspect, as earlier we were talking about children are not having severe impact of COVID-19 and all these things were there. But now the long COVID, or let's say long term impact of this COVID infection among the children is also being observed. Although such study requires to be peer reviewed, it requires to be published in the international journals, that needs to be validated also somewhere else around the world. Okay, but this is important development, you should be aware about this. Now, Finland confirms bid to join NATO. Yes, in previous week itself we talked about this. We have seen the map of Scandinavian countries also in the previous week when this was announced. Okay, so now on page number 2, CT page, you can see yesterday temperatures were 49 and 0.1 or something like that. So all students living in Delhi, it is advised that stay indoor, don't go outside, remain hydrated, okay, drink lot of juices. This is very important because on 5th June you have this prelims examination. Again, you should not fall ill before examination. Every day is important here. Okay, yes. Now moving on, come to directly page number 6. In abeyance of section 124A, a provisional relief. See, the writer writes very good article from polity perspective. He is Madras High Court advocate, and the context of this article, again the sedition law being suspended by the Supreme Court. In previous week also we have discussed, again we'll add some new points here related to same topic. Okay. On bottom side, we will not discuss Delhi High Court split verdict. In previous week, almost 2-3 times we have discussed the same article. Okay? Yes.
Right.
On page number 7, the importance of Lumbini. Now this is important article from IR section GS2 paper. Our Prime Minister today is visiting Nepal. Okay, so from that perspective the article is written. Article also mentions about some of the important places related to life of Buddha. They are located in India, so you should know about that from culture perspective, okay, or simply history perspective. You should know these places also. They can be asked in prelims examination. So mains GS2 paper IR, prelims art and culture and history perspective. Now on page number 8, understanding long COVID and its effects. It is in news because one study in Lancet journal was published recently which talks about this long COVID, okay, and its effect. So various studies are being done around the world to understand the long-term impact of COVID-19 infections on multiple organ systems in human being. Okay, and it is found that the impact of COVID-19 infection is severe in some of the cases. Okay, so that what do you mean by long COVID? What do you mean by, we can say there are two terms used here, long COVID and post-COVID. Post-COVID, the symptoms which remain up to 4 weeks. Long COVID, when the symptoms of COVID-19 remains up to 12 weeks. This can be asked in prelims examination also.
Yes, sir.
And the health effects of long COVID, they are also mentioned. So briefly we'll have look at that. At the same time, what India is doing to deal with this, that is also mentioned. We have separate policy guidelines to deal with this. Okay. So GS3 paper health science. science and technology perspective, GS3 paper, there can be question in prelims examination.
Right.
On page number 10, Prime Minister to launch Buddhist center work. So our Prime Minister is visiting Nepal today, and Buddha Purnima is being celebrated. Okay, so on that occasion, he will launch Buddhist center that is being developed, let's say, by the funding by India in Lumbini. Okay, the birthplace of Buddha. Fine. So you should be aware about the outcome of that visit. There will be bilateral talks between the prime ministers of two countries also. There will be overview of work related to infrastructure development, hydropower development between two countries. Okay. Now on page number 11, Rajiv Kumar takes charge as Chief Election Commissioner. Okay, so new CEC is appointed here. Will briefly revise Election Commission of India, basics of it. Okay, for prelims perspective, polity part. Okay. Fine. So Finland, Sweden inch closer to becoming part of NATO group. So we have already covered this news. Let's discuss now these articles one by one. First, in abeyance of section 124A, provisional relief. Now, recently, the 3-judge Supreme Court bench, after submission by the central government that it will reconsider this section 124A, sedition law of IPC. Okay, so it has said that the implementation of this law should be suspended for the time being till the government re-examines this provision. It has also asked the government or law enforcement agencies to avoid new FIRs to be filed under this law. Along with that, the investigation and arrest related to the sedition cases, they needs to be stopped. At the same time, it advised those people at present facing trial to approach the court to get the bail under this, we can say, provision. They can cite this reference to this verdict also. Now, what is the basis of reconsideration? Now, we know that it is a kind of, we can say, colonial law. Older law, we can say that it was brought by the Britishers to suppress the press. At the same time, we should understand it had the different motive at that time. Okay, so basically it wanted to suppress the dissent, but later on it was continued after independence with what was the, let's say, in the mind of constitution makers to continue this. Basically, at that time, there were various separatist forces, or we can say secessionist forces in the country. The country was newly born, and let's say it was felt that there is need of strong government at that time. And government needs to have some kind of mechanism to control such kind of dissent, which will again, promote such separatist force. At the same time, we should understand this provision has been misused on several counts. This can be understood from the low conviction rate under this law. It impacts the fundamental rights of the citizen, especially Article 19 and 21. Okay, so Article 19, freedom of speech and expression. Article 21, personal liberty is also being affected because it is, let's say, cognizable and non-bailable offense. Okay, so the people not getting bail, it is also impacting their right to life and personal liberty. Okay, so all this to some extent we say led the government to reconsider. Also, the higher judiciary was thinking about reconsidering it, and now the judiciary has said that we will wait till the government will let's say re-examine this.
Right.
Now, if we go back to the constitution making time, during that time, the noted constitutionalist, or we can say our leader K.M. Munshi, in those constituent assembly debates, when the first draft was made, the reasonable restriction under Article 19 on freedom of speech and expression, the word sedition was mentioned as restriction on freedom of speech and expression. But K.M. Munshi, in those, let's say, assembly debates, he has, said at that time, or debated at that time, and clearly said that we should remove this provision or wording of sedition as reasonable restriction. Otherwise, it will, let's say, make an impression that we want to continue sedition after independence, or the provision of article section 124A even after independence. So it is not good for any democratic country.
Right.
Okay, so that's why later on in actual constitution this wording was removed. Now after, let's say, independence, in the first decade of independence, two high courts struck down this section 124A as unconstitutional, impacting freedom of the people. Okay, but later on the appeal went to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court had this constitution bench, 5-judge constitution bench, in Kedarnath Singh versus State of Bihar case 1962. It reversed those verdicts of high courts and upheld the constitutionality of this law, but it read down the provisions. Down in a sense, it limited the provision of, let's say, 124A, and that limited sense was related to only public order. If a particular speech by a person may lead to, we can say, disturbance of public order or create a law and order situation or incite the violence, then that person can be booked under this law. Okay, so this is limited aspect, but basically this is not implemented in letter and spirit. Rather, the sedition word as included in this section was used by law enforcement agencies in a vague manner. Okay, what is sedition under this particular provision? Earlier we talked about this.
Mainly it's the disaffection towards the...
Yes, any speech or we can say expression that shows disaffection towards government. Yes, disaffection towards government. Now this disaffection may include hatred also towards the government. Okay, and this wording is used in a vague manner. It has not clearly defined what is disaffection. Okay, and that's why we can say this is vague provision. Now, who are largely impacted? So, marginalized sections of society, we can say that those belonging to SC/ST community, those belonging to minority communities, largely those people are arrested under this law.
Even
Okay.
in Chhattisgarh, 5,000 comes under sedition law.
Yes. So those belonging to marginal sections of society, they are largely arrested under this provisions. Okay, so this aspect you should know. Now, after this judgment 1962, there has been several judgments by the Supreme Court which have been progressive judgments, which altered the, let's say, jurisprudence altogether. How it altered? Because there is now wider interpretation of fundamental rights, be it related to, we can say, Article 21, Maneka Gandhi case, or we can say there 1973 what we can say Keshwananda Bharati case is there. Okay, so all these cases or their verdicts had wider interpretations of fundamental rights. Fundamental rights of the people are protected, and therefore we should understand there is need of revisiting this judgment. Okay, this judgment was, we can say, having right intention, but did not, let's say, government did not implement this intention of this judgment. Okay, so ultimately as a way forward, what we should understand is, in democracy dissent is very important. In democracy dissent is very important. There can be malified dissent, there can be bona fide dissent also. So of course the government needs to deal with malified dissent also, which may impact the order in the society, or it may create law and order situation, violence, disturb the peace. Okay, and for that purpose such provisions are important. For that purpose government requires some kind of authority, powers, and these laws provides the authority. Okay, so we cannot say that completely it should be abolished at present. Rather we can say that the wordings of this article needs to be clearly defined. At the same time, there should be definition of what do you mean by disaffection. Along with that, the criteria for which this section needs to be invoked, that should be also clear, and it should be limited. It should be limited in terms of, let's, threat to sovereignty of the nation, threat to security of the nation. Okay, so that should be criteria instead of public order. Why? Because public order is day-to-day matter. Public order is day-to-day matter, and it should not be the, let's say, responsibility of, we can say, simply politicians here to deal with. Rather law enforcement agencies are well equipped to deal with law and order situation, public order situation. So
it should be used for under three ways: for challenging for the sovereignty, integrity and unity.
yes,
As you told.
yes, sovereignty, integrity, unity, or we can say security of the country. Yes, so for that purpose only it needs to be invoked. So that suggests there is malified intent here. Okay.
Democracy is by design, not by consent.
Yes, this is the statement by K.M. Munshi in that debate. Essence of democracy is criticism of the government. Okay, so in any democracy, the criticism of the government needs to be allowed. Otherwise, that is not democracy. That is autocracy then. Yes, dictatorship.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so with reference to this statement, examine the validity of sedition law in present day scenario.
So examine
Okay.
the validity, we can give the example of Kanhaiya Kumar.
Yes, you can give, examine. When we say examine, first of all you should talk about need of this law, why it was brought in first place.
Right, sir.
Okay, and then you talk about the criticism of this law, how it has been misused and why it needs to go, or let's say its implementation needs to cut down, its scope needs to be cut down.
Right, sir.
Okay, and then way forward needs to be mentioned in examine command. Okay, and just now we talked about way forward, it should be clearly defined, the provisions of this law and all these things. Okay, but with reference to this statement we are saying no. So one paragraph should be on basics, explaining this statement. What do you mean by democracy? Democracy is by dissent, and why this dissent is required in democracy? Because the voice of the people is the utmost important in democracy, and of course voice of the people will differ. Each and every person will have different opinion, and basically the democracy works on consensus basis. The democracy works on, we can say, views of the people, opinion of the people, and if that is not listened to, then that is not democracy.
Right, sir.
Okay.
The government by the executive.
Then it becomes completely dictatorship, we can say. Now moving on, the importance of Lumbini. There is one article on page number 7. Our Prime Minister is visiting Nepal. So with that context, the article is written. Okay, so the Prime Minister's visit to Nepal is having political connotation as well as strategic connotation. How? Let's understand this. Why we are saying this having political connotation? Because Lumbini being the birthplace of Buddha, this is having some contested claim. Okay, so the Nepalis, they are very much sensitive about this issue. They consider that it is birthplace of Buddha, and Prime Minister acknowledging this and visiting Lumbini on Buddha Purnima is putting stop to this debate here. So we are accepting that it is birthplace of Buddha, so it is having some political connotation. It will create some bonhomie between Nepal and India. Then why we are saying it is strategic? Strategic in a sense, in recent times China has been investing lot in Lumbini in terms of infrastructure development. Lumbini is placed very much near border to India. Lumbini is located very much near to border of India, okay, along with Uttar Pradesh. And we do not want Chinese presence or its infrastructure near, let's say, border of India, in India's neighborhood. And that's why, if that is to be countered, India needs to further invest more and more at Lumbini. Okay, and there is some cultural aspect also. Of course, cultural is main one, important one. So cultural significance of Lumbini. We know that it is birthplace of Buddha. So Buddha was born in, we can say, Kshatriya clan, and he was prince, and later on he left the worldly life and started searching for answers to the questions of life. And after 6 years of meditation in the forests, he found answers to the critical questions of life. Okay, and then he achieved that enlightenment. He achieved the enlightenment under the Bodhi tree at Bodh Gaya in Bihar. Okay, and that event is called as, yes, Nirvana, enlightenment. See, when Buddha got enlightenment, the true knowledge he received, that is called as Nirvana. And when he found the answers to these questions, he immediately thought, I need to tell this, share this knowledge with people, so that there will be end to their sorrow. Okay, all the miseries they are facing, they will be able to end this. So he started preaching his knowledge, and the first sermon that he gave is at Sarnath, and that event is called as, this is important in prelims, that event is called as Dhamma Chakra Parivartana. Okay, that event is called as Dhamma Chakra Parivartana or Pravartana. Okay, so first sermon means teaching. There is assembly of people and Buddha is teaching his knowledge. Okay, so first sermon happened at Sarnath, and later on he died in Kushinagar. Okay, he died in Kushinagar. It is also located in Uttar Pradesh, and it was in news last year because the international airport was developed by India at Kushinagar.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it was in news last year. We were expecting that question in prelims. Okay, so that event where Buddha died, it is called as Mahaparinirvana. Mahaparinirvana. There can be question related to these events. So this significance of Lumbini is basically birthplace of Buddha. We should understand that there are many places associated with life of Buddha. They are located in India. So this creates cultural link between India and Nepal. That can be used as the important basis for relations between India and Nepal. Okay, India is home to some of the most sacred sites of Buddhism. Just now we have seen that. Now, unfortunately, India remains largely unrepresented in Lumbini. There are several monasteries built by different countries like China, Vietnam and other Southeast Asian countries, they have different monasteries. But India is not having any monastery in Lumbini. So it is opportune time, we can say, that India should start building that monastery, start investing in infrastructure at Lumbini. Okay, at present India has only built one small museum at Lumbini. Okay, India's investment at Lumbini, only one small museum is there, that is funded by India, built by India. Okay, now what are other measures that India can announce here? First of all, we should understand there is need of more and more integration in terms of Buddhist circuit, linking all these places together. So Lumbini can be the tourist place, pilgrimage tourist. So Indian can visit Lumbini, but visit through road is important. Okay, through road, crossing the border is important, because airways or let's say air travel is not affordable to many people, of course. So therefore there should be infrastructure development in terms of road construction across the border. On Indian side in Uttar Pradesh, linking this Lumbini on the other side, Indian roads are good, but after crossing the border, Nepal roads are not good. Okay, connecting this Lumbini. So what India can do? India can fund the projects for constructing those roads. Second thing we should understand, there should be, development of UNESCO there should be demand for UNESCO heritage tag for complete Buddhist circuit. At present, Lumbini and Bodh Gaya, these two places are part of UNESCO World Heritage Site. But along with that, Kushinagar and Sarnath, together it can be, a complete Buddhist circuit World Heritage Site. UNESCO maintains World Heritage Site list at the world level. Okay, they are culturally and religiously very important places throughout the world, or we can say they needs to be protected. UNESCO protects them through, let's say, giving funding. At the same time, the scientific advisories are given to protect these monuments, these places. Okay, so it can be done, and such initiative, so there can be, let's say, international Buddhist Development Center, and it can be, developed collaborating all Buddhist majority countries coming together, especially Eastern and Southeast Asian countries. And Southeast Asian countries where Buddhism is majority religion.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it can be initiative of India and Nepal jointly. So together there can be collaboration and there can be international platform for this religion. Right? At present it is not there. There can be initiative by India and Nepal in this regard. Okay, so up till now, whatever we discussed between India and Nepal, we largely discussed hydropower, we largely discussed the political aspects. Yes, border issue is there, or we largely discussed, let's say, Chinese investment in Nepal and all these things. Cultural aspect, as our Prime Minister is, Prime Minister's visit is focusing on only cultural aspect. Today's visit, okay, visiting Lumbini on Buddha Purnima, so that is having cultural significance. So when we talk about bilateral relations, it is part of our syllabus, India and its neighborhood. Okay, so there can be question on India-Nepal relations, and this is very important component.
So it's also used as a soft policy.
Yes, soft diplomacy, we say cultural diplomacy, soft diplomacy, it is important aspect.
Right.
Moving on, understanding long COVID and its effect. Okay, so yes, this can be asked in prelims examination. It is in news because recently one study published in Lancet journal which said that there are several cases around the world where long-term impact of COVID infection is observed among the patients. long-term impact. Okay, so with the ongoing COVID pandemic, evidences showed that considerable proportion of people who have recovered continue to face long-term effects. There is no, let's say, standard universal definition of what is long COVID or post-COVID. Rather, there is consensus among the doctors and scientific community that post-COVID means symptoms that persist 4 weeks after infection, and long COVID means 12 weeks past the COVID infection. If the same, let's say, symptoms persist for this long term, that will be called as long COVID. What are the effects? Skin rash, sleep difficulties, fatigue, muscle weakness, hair loss, joint pain, dizziness, cough, headache, sore throat, anxiety disorder, mobility issues. So different organs in the human system, they are getting impacted here. Okay. Now Government of India has developed its own national comprehensive guidelines for management of post-COVID sequelae, or we can say that the symptoms, this disease, post-COVID disease we can say. Okay, and all these doctors around in, let's say, country, they are advised to follow these national guidelines to deal with these symptoms. Okay, yes. The factual aspect you should remember, it can be asked in prelims examination. Now, Madhya Pradesh study finds hepatitis in COVID affected children. This is important development. COVID-19 infected children are facing this hepatitis or COVID acquired hepatitis. Okay, COVID acquired hepatitis has symptoms like nausea, loss of appetite, weakness, mild fever. So many children that are facing this problem. So up till now what we observe is the children were least affected from the severe COVID. But now these long COVID, let's say, impact on among the children, so it will, let's say, have some influence on the policy makers. There will be changes in the policy here onwards related to COVID-19. Okay. Now PM to launch Buddhist center work. So our Prime Minister is visiting Nepal, Lumbini, and there will be inauguration of, let's say, India International Center. India International Center, its work, or it will be constructed by financing by India, and our Prime Minister will also offer prayers at Maya Devi temple, that is dedicated to Mother of Buddha, name of let's say Mother. Fine. So it is brief visit. At the same time, the leaders of both countries will hold the delegation level talks after the ceremonies, where they will discuss hydropower development, partnership and connectivity also. So its outcome will be there in tomorrow's newspaper. So we'll discuss tomorrow about the outcome. Okay. Rajiv Kumar takes charge as Chief Election Commissioner. Okay, so briefly we'll take overview of Election Commission of India. It is relevant to polity part, prelims examination, basic information about Election Commission of India. Now Election Commission of India established under which article? Article 324 of Indian Constitution. And this body is responsible for holding the elections for 4 offices. Okay, President of India, Vice President of India, members of Lok Sabha, members of Rajya Sabha. Okay, so you should be aware about this. Along with, members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha together, along with that state assembly and those, let's say, state having council, legislative council for it also. Now it is not concerned with elections of panchayats and municipalities. Who is responsible for their elections? Very good. State Election Commission, that is established under 73rd, 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Okay, 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, which provides for Panchayati Raj institutions. Now what is composition of Election Commission of India? See, the Constitution provides for Election Commission. that is chaired by the Chief Election Commission, and we can say the as many as election commissioners that the president consider important or necessary. So it can be single member body, it can be multi-member body, and this has been, we can say, the trend since independence. It has remained as single member body as well as it is changed body also. Okay, so till 1989 it was single member body, then again it became briefly for multi-member, again single member, and again now it is multi-member body. Multi-member, that is 3 member at present. One CEC, Chief Election Commissioner, and the other are election commissioners. Okay, so this is the composition. Now they are appointed by President. President, after consultation with Election Commission of India, also appoints regional commissioners. Okay, so regional commissioners assist Election Commission of India for different regions like North India, Northeast India, South India, West India. Okay, so together it will be called as region. Now conditions of service and tenure of office shall be determined by the president here. Now along with that, these CEC and 2 ECs have equal powers, equal salary and allowances, which are similar to Judge of Supreme Court. Okay, so they have equal powers, although their name is CEC, but having same powers like EC. There is one, let's say, problem here. Problem in a sense that when we talk about removal of these 3, removing CEC is very difficult because that requires the procedure of
Same like Supreme Court.
yes, same like Supreme Court judge. It will require the parliamentary procedure. Okay, impeachment procedure we call it as. But election commissioners can be removed by the president without such process. This is the only difference. Now in case of difference of opinion among 3, the majority or the consensus based decision is taken, or majority based. Okay, so we can say that CEC is not the ultimate authority here. Okay, so there can be 2 election commissioners dissenting here, and therefore the majority decision is the final decision among 3.
One among equal.
Yes, we can say that. Yes. Now constitution has not debarred them from any further appointment by the government after their retirement. Okay. Now what is the term of commissioners? 6 years or until 65 years of age. This is the term of both CEC as well as EC. Now what is the qualification required? Constitution of India does not provide for qualification of Chief Election Commissioner or Election Commission. Also it is one of the criticism.
Even sir, funds are not charged upon consolidated fund of.
Yes, their salaries, their expenditure, they are charged upon consolidated fund of India.
No, they are not charged.
Salaries,
No. They are allocated under budget.
they are allocated under budget, both CEC as well as this one.
That is also weak.
Okay, one of the criticism we can say. Yes. Now on this on the basis of this information, what should be answer to this question? Yes, everyone? Election Commission, we have to find the incorrect statement. See, the command here is incorrect. Indian Constitution provides for establishment of Election Commission as multi-member body. It is incorrect. It does not provide for multi-member body. It can be single member, it can be multi-member. CEC, ECs have equal powers, equal salaries, similar to Judge of High Court. It is incorrect. Judge of Supreme Court. Then Constitution has debarred CEC, it has not debarred for further, so it is incorrect. Okay, so all of them are incorrect statements. Now, this one.
The company is right. So 2, 3 is right.
Yes, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes. So Kushinagar, the death of Buddha, that is the place. So Mahaparinirvana should be there. And Bodh Gaya is the place where he received the true knowledge, enlightenment, that is Nirvana. So 1 and 4 are incorrectly matched. Lumbini and Sarnath, these two are correctly matched. Okay, so 2 and 3 is correct answer here. B is correct answer. Okay, any question? Okay, we will start. Yes, tell me.
Sir, the first statement in the election commission wala question,
Mhm.
it was a very, not a very correct statement if you see. Indian constitution provides for establishment of election commission as multi-member body. So, पहले 1991 से पहले सिंगल मेंबर बॉडी
Yes.
था, उसके बाद मल्टी मेंबर हुआ.
Yes.
Sir, what is the exact provision that is mentioned?
Exact provision is that there should be the election commission headed by chief election commission, and from time to time if president consider necessary he can be assisted, or to further election commissioners can be appointed. That number is not fixed. Okay, but there should be CEC.
But there is a provision that it could be a multi-member body. So
There
how
is
will we
no
know that?
specific provision.
No, it is not
No
specially
specific,
mentioned.
yes. Okay, no specific that it will be multi-member body. So that means there will be CEC plus ECs. There will be some number mentioned in case of multi-member body. There will be some number mentioned. There are different commissions. There will be number mentioned of members and chairman and all. So such thing is not mentioned. Fine? Okay, let us stop.